very loosely, just sort of getting a puddle of that and just painting on some Quinacridone gold. If you don't have that, you could use raw sienna. And now I'm just mixing a little touch of burnt sienna, a little bit of indigo in there, and I'm just sort of drizzling this in the reflection area, diluting my brush. I've now put some burnt sienna in the center, and I'm using a little bit of turquoise now, just mixing that with the burnt sienna just to make it a very, very dark sort of bluey green. It's such a lovely color. And painting this all wet on dry with really loose brush strokes, especially in the water, to create that feel and look of water. And I paint on the right hand side there, I painted that wet in wet, creating a green colour, putting that turquoise on top of the Quinacridone gold. Wet into wet. I'm using a little bit of the burnt sienna now, just echoing that sort of reflection there in the middle of the water, wet on dry. I've just added a little bit of indigo. I think I've even got a tiny bit of pink in there by accident. And I'm using the tip of my size 14 brush, and I'm painting this damp into wet, sort of in the water, to create reflections. Try not to go over things over and over. Keep it really simple. I'm using my twig now just to scratch into this cartridge sketching paper, and it creates these lovely sort of dark marks, and I'm echoing that in the water as well. Remember to kind of do a mirrored reflection, so go the same way, don't go the opposite way with the reflection. I'm mixing up a bit of the indigo now with my size 6 brush, and I'm just putting some dark brushes, damp into wet, on that sort of water's edge, just to create some little hedgerow, little bushes. What I do love is how the wax resist has worked. It's sort of, it reserves the light and white of the sketching paper. You can take this off with brown paper and an iron, but I wouldn't bother. It's not going to harm the paper by leaving it on there. So I'm using my size 4 round black velvet brush to draw the tree trunks and branches in, just have the paint quite creamy so it doesn't bleed too much, because as you can imagine, the paper is damp. If you find the paper is a bit too wet, just wait till it dries off a little bit so you get more control. Just take your time, and you know, I sometimes turn my watercolor paper upside down. It makes it easier sometimes to paint trees. But just enjoy it. And here we are, I'm putting a wriggly little reflection in now with the tip of my brush with this indigo colour, and then putting some more bushes just below that tree trunk as well. I've just loaded my brush now with some burnt sienna. I'm painting that damp into damp, and now I'm sort of painting a fence. It's all from my imagination. You can put whatever you fancy in here. I mean, I can actually I'm thinking back now, I could have put some people in there as well. So you could do that as well, little people in there. So just painting these fence posts and marks, damp into damp. And now I'm using the corner of a cut up store card, and I'm scratching out this paint. Now I've noticed, because it's sketching paper, it's going to tear the paper slightly. Don't let that worry you. It's just a sketch. This is just to warm up and get a feel for everything here. And now I'm sort of scratching, and you can see I'm having fun. But I'm using now my size 2 brush to draw some smaller branches in. So if you want to, you could do this with the twig as well. You've seen me doing this with the twig in the past. Just to say a little bit about my Winsor & Newton field box, I've got a little video about that if you're interested. It's really nice for sketching, and I'll put a link for that video in the description below. So I'm just now painting these branches and tree trunks with indigo with my size 2 brush. The paper has dried off a bit. I haven't actually blow dried it, but it's so thin it does actually dry quite quickly. So I'm just mixing up some darks here and just painting this tree on the left hand side. Again, it is my imagination, so I'm just playing. There's no sort of stress here. If it goes wrong, just get another piece of sketching paper and just keep practicing, because the more you practice, the more you understand about watercolor, but also it gives you more confidence. Here I am tearing the paper here. I was a little bit heavy handed, but in a way it's graffito, so it's quite nice technique as well. You can use that in watercolor painting. And again, I'm putting in the reflections. I try to do that at the same time as I put a tree in, so it's got the same sort of colors as well. But what I love about this sort of sketching is you can really practice your mark making skills, you know, using the brush to make all these different sort of marks, not painting by numbers, but just being loose and you know, building that confidence with the watercolor. You know, I do love to spatter, so I'm spattering some turquoise here, beautiful color, and some yellows, just sort of hands a yellow light. And it really does introduce a bit of light and texture into this little sketch here. And I just love it. It's just so effective. And now I'm very gently sponging with my natural sponge. I've put it under the tap, wrung all the water out so it's damp. And I'm using that yellow just to create some more texture and light. And now I'm using just what I've got left in my palette, some darks in there to paint or to sponge in very gently, some dark green. For the foliage of the trees. Now, as I said earlier, you can use your twig to draw the branches and tree trunks with. Now, you don't have to use this colour combination I've used. You could use some other colours, you know, your favourite colours, to create this sort of like an atmospheric little sketch, like this little landscape sketch. So I'm just putting some paler sort of branches and tree trunks through the centre of this little painting, and I will put the reflections of those as well. What you do have to do with a twig is you do have to make a little puddle of colour and sort of dip it in. It's like using a dipping pen or a mapping pen. So if you don't like doing that, you can just use your size 2 brush as well. It's not a problem. I just like the feel of using a twig. Just love it. It just sort of inspires more creativity, more confidence even. So I'm just sort of finishing off here, just rolling that twig into the paint and then just painting that on through the center there. So now I'm going to lift off this little bit of sponging here with my large size 14 brush, just working that paint, lifting it off, because quite frankly, I didn't like it. I felt I lost my light a little bit. And you can even do this on a sketching paper. And as you saw there, I did it very, very gently, just to maneuver that paint off and then lift it off with some tissue. So I've been saying to my students for years, when you take something off, you have to put something back. So I'm actually putting back some light colours, of course, the Hansa Yellow Light, Wet into Wet Now, with a little bit of the red, just to warm it up a little bit, to make it a bit more orangey. And then I'm going to reflect that in the water as well. So don't forget to sort of mirror those reflections. Obviously, they don't have to be photographic, and this certainly isn't photographic, but, you know, sort of just so you echo those colours and those marks. To finish off my watercolour sketch, I really hope you enjoyed this short tutorial showing you how to use candle wax to create light and texture. If you would like to support the content that I'm creating here on YouTube, why not think about joining my Patreon membership? You'll get access to over 500 watercolour tutorials, many of which are exclusive. Please see the description below for more details. Thank you so much for watching. Happy painting. Bye for now.